Anything that is predictable in terms of what's going to happen with the leaders of our country. Certainly they don't want to lay out any opportunity for someone to make another attack of some sort or another. So even as we see the motorcade arrive or we see a helicopter land, that may or may not be what's actually going on. And we do know the president's supposed to be there. We have received information that he was scheduled to arrive within the hour to get that first-hand look at the hole in the side of the 58-year-old structure there, that Pentagon, the huge American flag, of course, we have seen earlier. But in terms of when the president arrives and when he leaves and that sort of thing, it is not beyond the realm of grasp here that certainly they're not going to play their hand out clearly for anybody at this point in time.
Let me also let the folks know who are watching us right now that the D.C. public school system has made a decision about classes tomorrow. Since we're focused on the Pentagon in our local area now, D.C. public schools and public charter schools will be open tomorrow. So I want to pass that along to you. That is according to the Associated Press. Again, D.C. public schools and the charter schools will, in fact, be open tomorrow. And you know that earlier in this the evening tonight, they released the names of the 3 teachers and the 3 students who died there. Bob Barnard is also standing by at the Pentagon. Bob?
Hey, Tracy, we were following that helicopter, and frankly, helicopters have been coming and going since yesterday. We believe the president, in fact, is already here by motorcade. And as we zoom in our picture, the one on I believe, the right side of the screen, go on and zoom in, Dallas, you'll see there are a bunch of people standing on vehicles in there, and we believe they are obviously there watching the president, watching some of the debris removal work that has just begun here this evening, now 6 o'clock. So that helicopter has been ferrying people, others as well, bringing people in and out. But we believe the president came by ground, and our camera was trained on that helicopter simply for the fact that we keep an eye on a lot of that is going on here. But it is our understanding the president is here and that a lot of people are watching him, as you see there. And on the far left side of the screen, the bulldozing work is begun here. And that's the latest from our vantage point.
You do believe that the president arrived in the original motorcade that we saw?
Absolutely. Yes, we do. And in fact, that's when people started getting up on their rooftops of cars and on ambulances there. And that's frankly at about the same time when we first saw the yellow and orange bulldozer equipment that first came here. Then they were stationary for a bit and then started moving. So we believe the president is in there. And again, I believe we'll see probably within the hour some of the first pictures of his visit. And these helicopters will be bringing people for all different kinds of reasons, but I believe the president will probably leave by ground as well.
All right, Bob, thanks very much. Let's go back to Beth Parker, who is in Manhattan. This is where it all began yesterday. Beth, you've had a chance to talk to New Yorkers today. What kinds of reactions are you getting from the folks there today?
It's incredible, Mike. It just seems like every single person has a story to tell. And the first story is incredible. You go to the next person you run into, and they have an amazing story to tell, too. Stories about people just literally running for their lives. I have a friend of mine who actually works up here in the area of Battery Park in the financial district, and he literally had to run for his life. He was in a building nearby. He works for Shearson Lehman Brothers, and he actually had to first had the windows blasted out of his building, and then obviously they made a run for it and managed to get out. But he said it was just incredible. Obviously, it's like something he'd never experienced before, and he's like a lot of people, quite shaken today. If we head over there onto the road, I think John can show you there that there are some extra vehicles headed in. Again, we're seeing and hearing the sirens headed toward the scene. We are hearing, and this is unconfirmed, that there's a possibility of perhaps an additional building collapse or maybe some more lower floors. Again, that south tower, the bottom 7 floors, we know that did apparently collapse. At least that's what we're being told. But I'm hearing now that there's a possibility of another collapse here. It's not clear. As I said, we are about a half-mile away or so, so we're getting information like everybody else kind of as it trickles in here, but it does appear that something additional is going on because we are seeing more and more activity in terms of vehicles heading into the scene. And again, as I was saying earlier, still huge crowds of people out here, many of them here cheering on the firefighters and police officers as they head into the scene, and that's certainly appreciated. According to the firefighters and police officers that I have talked with today, certainly that's got to warm their hearts in what has been a very, very difficult 30 hours or so.
Beth, give us a sense of what it is like right now. We see a lot of people walking around where you are with masks on. Is it very difficult to breathe? Is the air heavy? Or are your clothes actually getting dirty from the soot and ash that's flying around in the air?
As I said, it's getting a little tougher to breathe here, but it seems to be shifting our way. I have not, at this point anyway, used any of those masks. There certainly is a lot floating in the air here, and it does seem to be getting a little bit worse. And again, I suspect that some of that may just be the wind shifting, because it does seem as though the wind is picking up. When we first came, the wind seemed to be shifted in the other direction, and the smoke seemed to be going off to what would be, I guess, the left side of your screen. We're seeing much more of that, more over to the right, more directly behind me. So again, we don't know exactly what's going on. It does seem the wind shifted. It's certainly possible that this is intensifying a bit in terms of the smoke because of additional collapses. There is a possibility that there is another building collapse beyond that last 7 floors of the South Tower.
Hey, Beth, I'm going to have to interrupt you one more time. Let's go back and take another look at the Pentagon now. The motorcade you can see on the right of your screen is now departing the Pentagon. And perhaps if our reporter Bob Bonnard was correct, perhaps we'll see pictures of what the president was doing there momentarily. As soon as we do get that, if it is available, we will certainly be bringing it to you.
You'll learn a lot about our television terms here. We use the term pool feed. What that means is that one camera gets an opportunity to capture what's going on, and then all of the television stations and networks get to share from it, share with it, or get our share of it is probably the more accurate way to put it, and we will certainly have that for you when it is made available. Let's come back here to our set now and have an opportunity to talk with Rob Sapani, who is from Georgetown University and has been someone who has shared an awful lot of information with us today in terms of the kinds of things that have taken place over these past hours, where we are now, where we may be going further on down the road. Rob, let me ask you this. When we're talking about one of your areas of expertise is energy.
Yes, we can hear you.
We saw gasoline prices in some parts of the country start to spike up yesterday as people were afraid. Does this mean that things are going to result in gasoline prices going up? Do you see that something like that happening?
Absolutely not. I said this earlier this morning as well. I think everyone in the Washington metropolitan area should stay calm. There is no panic. Gas prices will remain stable. There might be some psychological impact on the world price of crude oil, $1 or $2 per gallon, per barrel, I'm sorry. But at the pump, you will not see any change. And if anyone in the Washington metropolitan area sees any drastic increase, they should immediately report it to the Department of Energy.
Somebody gouging.
Someone's absolutely gouging.
Hopefully no one will take advantage of this awful situation.
Well, I was so surprised at that yesterday. I mean, I was very surprised to see that people would react in that way.
Well, it's interesting. I was in Moscow during the coup that tried to topple Mr. Gorbachev, and coffee prices at the airport went from $1 to $6. So price gouging is all over. However, in this particular point, I'd like to emphasize the United States has ample supplies of energy. The world markets are very stable. And there is absolutely nothing to be concerned about as it concerns our energy security. So I think, as I said, the folks in the Washington metropolitan area are safe, drive their kids tomorrow to school, and there should be no problem at all in terms of supply of gasoline.
Good to know.
You talked about security. You know investigators are right now trying to piece this all together. Their main focus has been what it always has been, Osama bin Laden and Afghanistan. He is the son of a billionaire.
Yes.
He is somebody who, at least in part, was trained, we believe, by the U.S. What is it about his belief that separates him from the rest of the Islamic community? What is his hatred or passion toward the United States? And when did the twist come?
The fact that he has been able to target the United States and succeed in hitting American targets has gained him legitimacy and put him on the pedestal, I hate to use that word, of international terrorism, basically. He has, as a result, gained support among the masses in the Arab world. An example, comparison, in the 1970s, the terrorism was different in the sense that it wasn't the suicide bombing. Yet today, the difference with Osama bin Laden is that he can pick up the microphone and literally call thousands of people to come and join his cause.
Why? How is it that he can do that?
Because he has, well, he's a very charismatic person, number one. His elusiveness gives him an aura of mystery. But most important, no government in the region has stood up and said anything nasty about this man. And I think it's time we called on our allies in the region to start doing that. Because he is doing acts of enormous violence.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wonder if you clarify something for me, though. It's my understanding, and I may not have the correct understanding here, but it's my understanding that part of what his appeal is that he's calling for Muslim fundamentalists, saying that, in fact, the United States is standing in the way of Muslim communities to come together and be the world force that his religion, as I understand it, is calling them to be, and that therefore we have to be eliminated, that we are the destroyers, as they call us.
He is a master, just as Goebbels was the master of Nazi propaganda. This man is a master of Islamic propaganda to his advantage. The fact of the matter is, there are thousands of children in Afghanistan who are dying of hunger. And Mr. bin Laden, with $300 million, has not lifted a finger for these children. I think it's time to call this guy and call his bluff. And I think we should call on leaders in the region to start doing that and isolate this guy and call him for what he is.
And it has to be the people in the region who have to do it, because if the United States says these things, no, they're not going to listen.
They're not going to listen. Now, there's another element to this Osama bin Laden aura and mystery. Some of my colleagues that I spoke to today in Saudi Arabia were mentioning this, that while there is enormous sympathy for what's happened to us, there is also a concern that the United States government needs to really think its relationships within the region and also focus on the Palestinian issue. Because to the extent that we don't focus on that, it gives ammunition to Osama bin Laden. To the extent that we are active, viewed as neutral, it takes away from his appeal. And that's what my colleagues at the universities, particularly in Saudi Arabia, were telling me today.
All right, that's analytical, that makes sense, but that is a tough thing for George W. Bush or any president, but, you know, the leader of this country to do. He's got to weigh his position with the country's position with Israel, with the other Arab nations, and it can be very touchy, and that's going to be a hard task.
Absolutely, and that's why the response should be an immediate response with domestic aspects to it, and then a long-term international response. The immediate response is obviously finding the people who did this and punishing them for it. The long-term is a well-conceived foreign policy that addresses some of these issues that we've been talking about. The protection of our friend Israel, addressing the issue of the Palestinians, but then the broader issue of Persian Gulf energy security. 90% of the Asian energy is fed from the Persian Gulf. And so it's very important to the world economy that we protect the Persian Gulf.
The world economy.
Absolutely.
That's key.
Rob, thank you very much. We certainly have learned an awful lot from you today in terms of where things stand at this moment and where they may be headed, and some of the areas that we need to examine very carefully about where we head. And we thank you for your time and the information that you've been able to give us this day.
Thank you, sir.
We should probably give you sort of a wrap-up of what's been going on today. The video you're looking at right now, these are not fires, as we understand it, that you're seeing. This is dust from the collapse of yet another element, or I guess is the rest of Tower number 2, if that's correct, Tracy?
Well, you know, I'm going to correct that, actually, because according to the Associated Press now, it is the remainder of the North Tower.
The North Tower, okay.
The 7 stories that remained from the 110 stories that originally collapsed yesterday. Apparently, the rest of the structure came tumbling down not too long ago. People were ordered out, journalists, the crews who were there to get the heavy equipment out so they could pick up the pieces, the debris, and get to the hopefully survivors, but certainly to the casualties.
Very, very sad information that's come out of New York today. On the one hand, you look for those stories of hope in which survivors have been found, people calling on cell phones, that sort of thing. Some rescuers were actually found today, but then the number of firefighters and police officers who have lost their lives in this is just formidable. It's appalling, in fact, to see how many have lost their lives, in addition to the innocent lives that were lost with the actual crashing of the airliners into those two towers.
Mayor Giuliani, and this was a while ago, so certainly these numbers are going to be revised, and they're probably going to go way, way up. 41 known dead, according